Listen, newly promoted sides will struggle, but I do think that there's one obvious one that stands out there. Racing Santander and Malaga, I think they'll just struggle full stop. Obviously, getting into the big flight is never going to be easy, but these are two huge clubs that have a lot of investment behind them. If they get it right, then obviously it can work out. I just don't know how good they are. Haven't been following them in pre-season. I don't necessarily know exactly how good they can be competitive. Levante, I do know a lot about it. No SB, no party. I'm just going to throw that out there. You lose your goal scorer, and I know he's a red-hot young player and a talented player. Yep. I think automatically they drop like a stone, and that might be one of the biggest losses we will see. A player like him departing, going to Real Madrid, that's a massive loss. So there's my relegation candidates right now. Now, there are a number of big names here, Stefano, that stand out to you. I'm sure that you are thinking might make European football, but most likely will end up in the top half of the table. Of course, Celta Vigo and Valencia have been teams that have struggled most recently, but at the same time should be in the top half of the table. I just don't know if they can get there. Celta Vigo relying on Iago Aspas for how many times, by the way? It's about 19 years that guy's been the guy. Valencia, I'm waiting for them to do something. I watched them against Newcastle, not impactful enough, but they're still a team that I do think that can be in the top half of the table. So had I dug a little bit deeper, maybe I would found a reason for them to be there, but I haven't. So they're actually in the bottom. Osasuna is probably the biggest story from all of these teams that have dropped down. Obviously, La Coruña come back into the division. That's a big jump for them. I think they're the one that surprises everyone, that'll be more competitive. Now, Osasuna, Budimir is their goal scorer. How long can you rely on him? He's in his mid-30s now. He's a Croatian hitman. He's a brilliant goal scorer. But if you think about double figures, no, this guy's a 20-goal-a-season guy every year. His goals have put them in the top half of the table, competing every single season. I don't know how long that lasts, so therefore I think they drop down. I don't know what's going on with Sevilla, but I can't quite figure out how I can put them in European football, so therefore I've dropped them down to the bottom.
I think for Sevilla, from where they've been the last few seasons, that's about fair. Yep. Hate seeing Valencia there, but it's hard to argue. Yeah. Valencia is such a historic club, but they have just not gotten it right the last few seasons, not being able to really splash the cash and bring players in. Developing players has not been good. I think this is pretty fair, considering where all these teams are right now.
I would love to hear what Phil Kitromilides thinks about my bottom half of the table. And I'm sure he's got a few things to say about my top half.
Let's go. I can't wait.
Espanyol, Real Sociedad, Villarreal and Elche competing to try and get into European football. Will they be in European football? I don't quite know. The Yellow Submarine, I think, will drop a few places. Obviously, dealing with European football is very difficult to do. Elche is the one who's probably the biggest surprise. Yep. They've made some really good transfers, and I think they'll be much more competitive this year. Offensively, Real Sociedad and Espanyol. Espanyol, I know the ownership group there, so that's why I've put them in the top half of the table. Don't want to get into trouble. Let's get into European places, right? The European battles, because this is where obviously the biggest discussion is going to be. Now remember, there's only 4 guaranteed Champions League spots for the Champions League and La Liga. Obviously, UEFA coefficient may lead to a 5th spot, and that would mean that Elche in the 7th spot would qualify. Athletic Club, I think, will be much better than they were last season. They were shocking last season. Yeah. Season before, obviously competitive and winning trophies. That was their history, right? Winning a domestic trophy is always massive. Copa del Rey is huge. But then they tanked, right? They've got a World Cup winning goalkeeper now. You can't be that bad. This season's got to be much better, and I've got a feeling they end up in Europe.
And you have to expect Nico Williams will at some point be back to the Nico Williams we know, right? I mean, he spent just so many injuries last season. Yes. That was a big part of the reason why they struggled.
Real Betis dropped down a place because I do think that Real Betis will deal with European competition well, but how well will they actually deal with it? They have talent, they've improved, obviously, in the transfer window as well, but at the same time, I think it's very difficult for these clubs to deal with it. An Athletic Club have the benefit of not actually having European football, so therefore I put them in there. Let's go to our 4th spot, and this is where it gets competitive. Welcome to Phil Kitromilides' scoreline today. Rayo Vallecano, why do I have them there, Stefano? Do you have any reason why I have them in 4th?
Enlighten me.
So this is a club that doesn't have European football this year. Last season it cost them dearly, European football. So they dropped down the standings massively. They're having a lot of problems with their stadium now, getting clearance to be able to compete in their stadium. But this is a club that has a mentality like no other. Very similar to my beloved FC St. Pauli, where they don't give a about anybody else out there in the world except them. Rayo Vallecano may have lost some players, talented players.
Quite a few.
But this mentality that they have It is an FU mentality. It is us against the world mentality. And with no European football, I think they focus solely on trying to be competitive in La Liga, and don't rule them out in the transfer window from making some big moves. They will be competitive this year. Will they be good enough for fourth? It's a long shot, and that was my long shot. That was my biggest gamble, putting Rayo in fourth. And many people here at our Golazo network disagreed, and I'm sure you're one of them.
It's a tough one, especially with the stadium issues. I appreciate the mentality. I think they're a team that can finish in the top 8. Top 4 is a tough one for me to get around. They have had good signings. A lot has to go their way, in my opinion. I appreciate you going on that limb, though, because it is a team that has some motivation, has some fire, and now we'll have to see with their stadium issue as well. That's something else. They just need a stadium to be able to play their football. That would help a bit, wouldn't it? All right, number 3.
Number 3, the obvious choice is Atleti. I guess this, in my personal opinion, they'll finish in third if they keep Julian.
Yes.
If they lose Julian, and he's gone, and he's saying he's not playing, if they lose him, they could potentially drop further down, and then it becomes a battle between the other teams to get into that European Champions League slot. I just think Atleti have made some really good moves, and regardless of what happens with Julian, they're going to be competitive. Will they win a title? No. I think the other two will be far too competitive. But Atleti are a team with an experienced coach on the sideline who's been there for a ton of years. They've improved their midfield, and I'm concerned about Julian. But at the same time, if they keep him, they might put a bit of pressure on second spot.
I agree.
Not third. If they keep him. Because if they keep him, Barcelona should be worried. Not Real Madrid. Barcelona should be worried. Now, why am I going for Barcelona in second spot? I mean, when you've got as many players as they had that competed in a FIFA World Cup, it's ridiculous for Hansi Flick to be able to deal with the pre-season not having your players there. I mean, it was 14 players, something like that? 14 players?
Not all of them got a ton of game time towards the end of the World Cup.
Don't matter. Still there. Taxing, right? 8 of them went on to win the World Cup. So let's make no mistake about it. This team lost Lewandowski and are still trying to improve. If Julian goes to Barcelona, Barcelona move from second to first. That's the difference for me. If you have a red-hot goal scorer, you move in at top place. But you don't right now. And that's why I've got Real Madrid as my La Liga champions. I picked on Real Madrid horribly last season, and I was probably right for the majority. They weren't very good in the Champions League. They weren't very competitive domestically. A little bit frustrating. But I think that 30-plus goals for Mbappé this year, once again in La Liga, will also happen. I think if you look at some of the signings, including the experienced signings that have come in through the door, Real Madrid have done good business, but Mourinho's the man. Mourinho magic, I think, leads to a title for them domestically. I don't think that Real Madrid will compete for a Champions League this year. I think they're going to make that switch and try to win the domestic title. And I think Barca's mentality will be to win that Champions League trophy this year. So Hansi Flick wants that trophy, and he's probably going to try and be patient this season to get his team performing best in the latter stages of the campaign, especially with how many players have come back from the World Cup. And Real Madrid's benefit is they've improved in every single position. I mean, we could go from goalkeeper all the way through to the top.
How have they improved?
Midfield.
So how have they improved in their midfield? Bernardo Silva, that's the key piece in the midfield that's going to change things. You're still going to have Tchouaméni, you're still going to have Camavinga maybe starting in the midfield. Valverde, if he's in position. Do you think that's enough just with Bernardo Silva? Bernardo Silva, that, by the way, looked pretty tired at the end of last season and at the World Cup.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, but still talent. I mean, you're bringing experience in through the door to be a creator there. And they need to take a bit of pressure off Kylian Mbappé and Vinícius Jr. He's just signed a new contract, right? You need to take a bit of pressure off those players. Now you've got experience coming in through the door. I know Konate coming in, the defensive line will help them a lot. Right fullback position is improved as well. I think that we are seeing a competitive Real Madrid team. You don't like it, huh?
I don't. I think Barcelona is still a far better team, top to bottom, than Real Madrid. The Rodri signing, I think, changes everything for Barcelona. I don't know. It's a tough one. I do think that it'll be a battle like it always is. Yeah. I just am not that confident in Real Madrid with that midfield right now.
Not a Mourinho fan?
I like Mourinho for the content. Love him for the content. Is he the best manager for Real Madrid? I'm not sure at this point.
Real Madrid number 1.